everyone! How do you do? Are you ready for the winter? No? Then let's go to knit hats. But before we start, I want to tell you that my bracelet, which you can see in each of my videos, is already fixed and I'm very happy. I found this video on YouTube and I will try to make my hat the same way. I don't understand German, so I may not be explaining or following the exact steps shown there, but the final result is very good. Make sure the racking handle is positioned at 6 o'clock. You have to insert 67 needles on the front bed. First, raise 33 needles to the left from the zero and then 34 needles to the right. Place the edge springs on the last needles and make sure the latches are closed. Now raise 67 needles on the back bed of the machine. You have to observe the needle rule. The leftmost needle must be on the front bed and the rightmost needle must be on the back bed of the machine. Place the edge springs on the last needles and make sure the latches are closed. I'm always raising the needles all the way up so I can see them better. If you do so, you must return them into their working position before you start knitting. Turn the racking handle anti-clockwise to 12 o'clock. At this point, the needles must be opposite to each other. You have to raise pushers for all the working needles. The pushers must be arranged in 1-to-1 division. The leftmost pusher on the front bed must be in its working position. Here you can see up close. The rightmost pusher on the front bed also must be in its working position. Raise the pushers under all the working needles on the back bed. They also have to be arranged in 1-to-1 division. Now you can see them up close. The leftmost pusher on the back bed must be in its resting position. The first pusher in its working position has to be the second from left to right. The rightmost pusher must be in its resting position. For the hat, I will use this black cotton yarn. To set the lock, rotate the dial to H and set the NX lever to X. Set the stitch size to 4, clear the row counter and press the left arrow key. Set the same settings on the back lock but press the right arrow key instead of the left one. Insert the black strippers. Now knit 8 rows using these settings. After knitting each row, use the orange comb to push the needle slightly to tighten the yarn. Then knit the second row and repeat. You can see the yarn between the beds of the machine. Tighten the yarn by gently tapping on the needles on both beds using the orange comb. This way the yarn will not get tangled and you most likely won't break a needle. Set the front lock to CX, change the stitch setting to 5, clear the row counter and press the 0 key to disengage the arrow key. Set the same settings on the back lock, the dial to C, the lever to X, the stitch size to 5 and press the 0 key between the arrows. Here you can see the 0 key up close. Knit 4 rows slowly and carefully. Clear the row counter and change only the stitch size to 6 on both locks. This is the head itself. You have to knit 250 rows. After you knit about 40 rows, you will be able to hang weights to the head. This step is optional, but I'm always attaching them, one on the front side of the knitting and one on the back side. In the CX position, the machine will ignore the pushers. They were only needed for the cast on. You can place them out of working position anytime after you knit the first 8 rows in the HX setting. Clear the row counter after you knit all 250 rows. Take the double eye bodkin tool. We need to transfer every other stitch starting from the second stitch on the right. In other words, take the second stitch and hook it to the needle on the left. Now the third needle must have 2 stitches. Take the stitch from the fourth needle and hook it on the fifth needle. Repeat until you transfer all the stitches on the front bed. Now you can take a closer look. When you transfer all the stitches, use the orange comb and put all the empty needles out of working position. Then repeat the same steps on the back bed of the machine. Transfer every other stitch starting from the second stitch on the right. See the process up close. It must look like a reflection in a mirror. The empty needles on the front bed must be opposite to the empty needles on the back bed. In the end, it must look like this. Change the stitch size on both locks to 5. The other settings must remain the same. Clear the row counter and knit 2 rows. Clear the row counter again. Set the stitch size to 4 on both locks and knit 2 rows. Now cut the yarn from the lock. Take the yarn from the spool and cut a piece about 6 times longer than the head. Thread the long yarn piece in the double-end bodkin tool. Fold the yarn in half and make sure the double-end bodkin tool is in the middle. Remove the edge spring on the front bed of the machine and start taking the stitches one by one. You can clip the end of the yarn under the edge spring while you're taking the stitches. First, you have to take only the stitches from the front bed. When all the stitches on the front bed are on the yarn, remove the left edge spring on the back bed and start taking the stitches from left to right. Put the needles from the front bed out of working position, otherwise the yarn can hook on them and slow down the process. Take the last stitch on the double-end bodkin tool and the head will fall from the machine. This is the head. The yarn that I'm winding now is the one from the cast-on. We will hide it later in the video. Here's how the cast-on should look like. And this is the cast-off. At first it may look a little bit messy. This is because of the yarn on which we strung the stitches in the last step. Sometimes while knitting the last 4 rows the machine may drop 1 or 2 stitches, so you have to check before proceeding further. At this point you can fix them unnoticeably. If there aren't any dropped stitches to fix, turn the head inside out and split the hanging threads. The single one is from the cast-off and the others are from the yarn on which we picked the stitches. Leave the cast-off thread aside and pull the other 4. With your other hand push the head to shrink, exactly as a drawstring back. Pinch and squeeze the top part to adjust it and continue pulling the yarns. Check how it looks from the outside and pull the yarn tails until the hole becomes tiny. Then make 2 to 3 tight knots. I'm cutting the yarns short so it can be easier to work with them. Hope you see everything. It's hard to show you on a black head. Thread the end of the yarn into the double-end bodkin tool and hide it in between the stitches. Then cut it and repeat the same with the other tail and with the cast-off yarn. I'm hiding the stitches in a circle around the tiny hole on top of the head. This is very easy and fast to do. When you hide all the yarn tails, you have to cut them short. Finally, you have to hide the yarn from the cast on. Thread it into the double-end bodkin tool and hide it in between the stitches. Then cut the end using scissors. And here is the final result. This is the first hat I made just as a test piece. I will try to make a knitted snowman for decoration because Christmas is coming soon. That's all for today. Have a nice day and see you in my next video.